Earlier this week, the former Deputy Commissioner at Sars, Ivan Pillay, said in our speech, our state is largely dysfunctional, seems incapable of performing some of its functions, and cannot properly protect its citizens. He means the state cannot protect you. He also spoke about a sense of despondency, or despair, where people believe they're not able to fix the problems that they face. He was delivering a Helen Suzman memorial lecture, and he joins you now. Mr. Pillay, good afternoon to you, and I really appreciate the time. You've been through an awful lot over the last few years. You say that our state basically is not working, and there's so many examples of this. In your view, how did we get here?
Good afternoon, Stephen. Well, I think some of it is we can't run away from it, that we come from apartheid. And as I said on Tuesday evening, apartheid wasn't benign. It was evil. And apartheid ensured that black people had no experience of managing a state. And by the way, they had no experience of appreciating what is good governance. So we do carry that hangover. How would we have been ready and prepared to manage and administer a sophisticated state? I think that's the first issue. And I think we don't talk about it enough. And for me, because we don't talk about it enough, we can't really get to coming to grips with what is it we need to learn in order to do this work well. So that's, I think that is one. The second thing is that obviously you have a state that is catering for a small percentage of the population really well, hasn't been catering for the vast majority, and then suddenly it's got to start catering for the whole population. That's a huge undertaking, and it puts the legacy systems under great strain. And that required amalgamating various separate apartheid institutions. It's not an easy thing to put these things together in a systemic way. I think that with the benefit of hindsight, there are things we didn't do well. I think also part of the solutions, like having three equal spheres of governance, adds complexity to a new situation that we are all grappling with. And then, as I mentioned on Tuesday evening, there is no center to the public service. It is fragmented, and as time goes on, it's got more fragmented and disjointed because there's no center. In the apartheid era, they had the Public Service Commission, which sat at the center. Of course, such a commission was staffed by Afrikaner males. And that could not be allowed to continue. I think the mistake that we made is that we neutered the Public Service Commission so that it doesn't really manage the public service as a whole. And maybe, can I mention one more point? It's a very practical point. May I, Stephen?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, so for example, when you join a state department, you sort of join that department. You don't join in practical terms, the public service as a whole. There isn't a career management system that manages all these public servants over the 3 tiers, or even the 1 tier, if you're talking about national. So you actually stay in that institution. So, and obviously there is a built-up pressure for people to be promoted to earn more money. So there's a lot of pressure to promote people, in my view, probably before they are ready for it. And then there's also pressure to look at other institutions. Where is there a vacancy? You go to the other institution. So all this increases the instability in the institution. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you. So, the Public Service Commission, I think, may be trying to get a little bit more muscular, certainly trying, from what I can see, to try and depoliticize the public service, to try and, I mean, people whisper this. I'm sure you've seen it, Mr. Pillay. You know, they talk about not quite an inter-cadre deployment, but something close to it. How important could that reform be? Do you think it's even going to happen? I mean, the politicians will surely fight very hard to stop reform of the public service.
Yeah, so, you know, Stephen, when we are like we are now, there are lots of issues to be focused on and to be resolved. I don't think there is any one thing that can resolve the issues. I think it is very important that the Public Service Commission, supported by government and supported by all political parties, that they should desire to create a professional public service. I think that is what we would have to do, and such a service has to take account of the fact that it really needs to have the technical capability, and it needs to have professional managerial capability. I think people are talking about it, but at the same time I have concerns because we really do not have a good history of getting things done. There usually is a lot of talk and a lot of slogans, but actually getting things done, we have great difficulties in doing that.
You talk about despondency, a sense that we can't do anything. And I've seen people in communities talking about this, you know, this idea that I can't do anything or no one does anything. Where does that come from? And I can sort of see why, I can sort of understand it intellectually, because you can ask the state for something and ask the state for something and ask the state for something, and you're ignored. And your parents were probably beaten up by the same state, you know. So you just don't really believe you'll get anything from the state, so there's no point in trying?
Yeah, well, in a way, the despondency, well, again, it comes from many factors. But look, even white people before 1994 grew up in an environment in which the state was a very big player in their lives. And for black people, the state was a very big player, but a negative player. And many of us who participated in the liberation struggle believed that having a capable state would enable us to rectify the past. So if you actually, lots of South Africans, black and white, do believe that a lot depends on the state getting things done. And of course we look around and then we see litter, we see sewage plants malfunctioning, we have a problem with electricity, we have a problem with roads, we have a problem generally with the absence of real good policing. So people look around and they're hoping that the state can resolve these issues. And people keep asking. After a while, there's a pent-up violence, because that's the pattern. You ask and ask and ask, and nothing happens, and then people start rioting, or they start attacking assets of the state. Because with all the noise that people are making, things don't seem to be happening fast enough. I should say, on the other hand, Stephen, at the same time, lots of communities have begun to do things for themselves. The more prominent ones we would have read about were citizens come together and they intervene. In some cases, they've gone to court to try and force the municipality to do what it is supposed to be doing. But for me, therein lies the hope. That no matter how desperate things are, you will get communities that are ready to act. And no matter how difficult things are, you will get for example, the licensing office that operates well, the clinic that operates well, police stations that operate well. There are those gems. And what we should be about is trying to tap onto those gems, reinforcing them, extending them, and linking them. That would be the bottom-up part of a plan. Obviously, there's got to be a plan from the top going down. But I spoke about that on Tuesday. So, indeed, and you've seen it in the way in which people are voting. Many people didn't turn up to vote in the local elections. It does indicate some despondency. But I think we are capable, as long as we have a proper diagnosis of the problems. And then we agree on the way forward. Thank you.
Ivan Pillay, I really appreciate the time. Thank you. Former Deputy Commissioner at SARS.